Hey everyone, welcome to the No Man's Land. I'm Angela Ramirez. Today is November 9th. Wow, it has been kind of a crazy weekend, guys. There's been a lot going on. For those of you following the election, you know that Joe Biden has been declared the projected winner. We're going to talk about what that means. We're also going to talk about the legal battle that is about to ensue nationwide, primarily in Philadelphia and maybe Georgia, but definitely Philadelphia and Detroit area. There is already litigation starting on Donald Trump's behalf. The media has already called the election in Joe Biden's favor. Donald Trump is currently seeking lawfare, a legal avenue to, I guess, counter that claim. And we're going to find out what happens, but we're going to talk about what we know for sure has happened over this past weekend. There is kind of a lot to talk about. We really just don't know what is going on just yet. We don't know what is going to happen. So let's get into it. The first thing that we're going to discuss is a series of rallies that occurred throughout the weekend called Stop the Steal. This is a hashtag that has been used nationwide. I believe the person who founded the idea, his name is Ali. And Ali is basically, I think he's an independent journalist who, I think what he does is cover election and political information. I'm not very familiar with him as a person, but I do know that he is pretty much organizing he's like the leading role in this Stop the Steal rally. Now, there was actually 21 different rallies throughout the US this weekend. That is a lot of rallies. It's more than the mainstream media has covered. And I think it's really worth noting that basically, the media is saying there's no evidence of fraud. There's no evidence of fraud. And, maybe there's not evidence of fraud per se, but there is enough evidence of interference and manipulation on the part of either USPS poll workers and other issues, specifically this glitch in Dominion voting software, which is something we're going to talk about as well. But like I said, the media keeps saying no evidence, no evidence. That's really just not true. It really isn't true. There is actually a tremendous amount of evidence that there is cause to look into what happened, and that there's a reason to start investigations. So let's get into what we're going to talk about. Let's start with the Stop the Steal rallies that haven't really been covered by the mainstream media. These rallies, like I said, there was 21 throughout the U.S. I attended the one in Colorado Springs to cover what was going on. I thought that it needed to be covered. And so I went out there. I took some pictures. I took some videos. I talked to a few people. And here's a photo that I took. I don't know if you guys can see it if you're watching, but if you are watching, you can see that there is an individual holding a really big Trump flag. This guy had a huge Trump flag. It was probably, I don't know, maybe 12 plus feet, the flag itself. And then he had it on a huge pole that was easily it was probably a 15-foot pole. It was a huge, huge, he was making a big statement. There was two of these at the rally, and if you look just underneath the guy standing on the pillar, what you see is two signs, and one of those signs calls for uniform election laws. The other says ballot legitimacy matters. And I really liked the reason I liked this picture, and the reason that I chose it as a cover photo for this article that I wrote that we're about to go over, is because a lot of people are just assuming, I think, on the left, that these rallies are being held by people who are like sore losers. I actually had somebody I know say, when I told them that there was evidence of election interference, they said, "Oh, but that's a conspiracy theory. There's no signs of fraud. And everybody who's out there protesting is just a sore loser." And that's very much not the case. That's not the case at all. What we are seeing out there is that there's a number of everyday Americans 70 million Americans voted for Donald Trump. That's a big number. I know that Joe Biden supposedly got, I think, 74 million votes. Either way, 70 million people right now seem to feel that, I don't want to speak for everybody, but people at this protest felt that there was some degree of election interference. And they're not calling for Donald Trump to be the winner. They're not calling necessarily for Joe Biden not being their president. That's not what this rally was about. What this rally was about was the demand for election transparency, election integrity, and investigations into all credible claims of interference. And that seems to be pretty reasonable. Whatever side you're on, left or right, it seems really reasonable to say that we need election integrity in our country. Me personally, I don't usually like to give my opinion on everything, but me personally, I did vote for Donald Trump. I didn't vote for him in 2016. I had voted Democrat my whole life, and I really was unhappy with the state of the Democrat Party. I wasn't a walk away person, but I did resonate with the walk away movement very much. I did not think that the Democrat Party was what it had been in the past, and maybe it has to do with getting older and getting married and being a business owner, but I resonate a little bit more with Republican values these days, conservative values. And either way, as somebody who is a lifelong Democrat switched to the Republican Party, I believe that it should be bipartisan for us to investigate all credible claims of election interference. We had the Russiagate scandal from 2016 to basically 2020. And if we're going to investigate that in such detail, it seems likely that it's worth to investigate these claims that are coming up today. So let's get into this article. I'm just going to read through some of it. Here we go. This is actually my piece. If you guys wanted to read it, it's at thenomanzone.com. That's where I publish all of my investigative work. This YouTube channel is just kind of a place to give you guys some audio content and video content if you're not a reader. I know not everybody has time to read, and I think sometimes YouTube is a better medium for people to get information. So anyway, let's get into it. Multiple allegations of election interference triggered nationwide protests. Irregularities that suggest election interference have triggered widespread concerns in the U.S. regarding illegitimate and unconstitutional activities that played a role in the presidential election. These allegations are being widely dismissed by major news organizations who have prematurely called Joe Biden and Kamala Harris as the projected winners. This is despite the fact that many states haven't finished counting ballots yet, not to mention multiple recounts are being conducted in Georgia, litigation beginning on November 9th, which is today, and investigations are being launched into suspicions of irregularities in certain states. Despite the mainstream media and partisan political officials insisting that there is no evidence of interference and fraud, lawyers, legislators, and everyday Americans are deeply concerned that the 2020 election was not conducted with integrity and transparency. Now, nationwide protests labeled Stop the Steal are breaking out nationwide. The purpose is everyday Americans believe these irregularities from this election are tied to a coordinated effort designed to undermine the American electoral process. They're demanding investigations and answers to the various allegations of election tampering. So just scrolling down, if you guys can't see, I will explain this to you. Here's a few pictures from that protest. This one on the left here is the same one from the top of the page. This one here, there's a gentleman with a Legal Votes Matter sign. And then this lady, she had a really cool sign. It said, Stop the Steal with two hammer and sickles on the side of the word "the." And I liked that sign because it kind of implied that one of the hallmarks of communism, or the integration of communism, is election interference. And I really thought that sign was accurate. She's a really pretty lady too. So to continue, on November 7th, roughly 250 to 300 people stood outside of the Colorado Springs City Hall to protest a lack of integrity and transparency that occurred during the 2020 election. Many individuals carried signs that called for election transparency, uniform election laws, and the need to ensure that only legal votes be counted. The gathering drew dozens of speakers to come forward and share their thoughts on the election. Included in the speakers were legal immigrants including a woman from Vietnam who moved to America to escape Vietnamese communism. I'm going to stop right there because I thought it was really wild when this lady spoke. She came forward to speak, and one of the things she said, I don't know if I got it on video, but I think it was too hard to capture the audio. But one of the things that she said was that if you really want to know what communism is, it was something along these lines. If you want to know what communism is, just know that heads will be rolling, like in communism. I think she was implying the idea that people die and get killed by essentially guerrilla communists. And coming from Vietnam, I could see why she would have that mentality. For those of you guys who aren't familiar with what happened in Vietnam in regards to guerrilla warfare and communism, I recommend looking into it. I'm just going to play a short little clip about just kind of showing you guys what it looked like in downtown Colorado Springs. Like I said, there's probably 250 to 300 people there at any one time. So here's a look at the crowd. Last flight for the move. And it started when people came about when they have freedom. So I'm just going to encourage you, don't give up your freedom. Yeah, so I mean, kind of hard because it was buffering, but this guy here, I really liked his speech. It was a great speech. His name was Joel, and he said he was an immigrant from Uganda, and he was asking the crowd to fight for fair and secure elections. He said, and I quote, he said, "If we lose this fight, there will never be a fair election in this country again." And he was really adamant that people from other areas of the world really look to America for freedom. He said America is very much symbolic with freedom. And I really love that because I think here in America, those of us who grew up here from like birth, we really take for granted what America is. My mom, not to get like personal for you guys, but my mom is an immigrant. She came here from Honduras when she was in her early 20s. And a lot of people don't know what kind of political structure they have there. But when my mom was there, it was very much a banana republic, like a actual banana republic. That's like kind of that region is where the terminology came from. Her dad worked on the banana plantation, and she remembers them spraying chemicals. She remembers like the economic and cultural power that these plantations had because of the fact that they controlled the economy. Literally, like everybody was dependent on these banana plantations. And so she moved to America from a banana republic. And when all of these protests started, I kind of explained to her what was going on. And I told her that I had been at a protest in Colorado where people were being shouted at and called really condescending things for carrying an American flag. And she was shocked. She said, "No, don't ever let anybody tell you that the American flag is anything but a representative of freedom." She's like, "When I was in Honduras, we saw the American flag and it gave us hope. It was freedom." And gosh, I try not to cry every time I tell this story, but it's hard not to. Like, my mom really appreciates this country. She loves it here. We don't have everything. She doesn't have everything. It's not like we're very wealthy or anything like that. But the wealth, people underestimate how wealthy you are just for having freedom to express your own opinions without being imprisoned, freedom to move from one state to another, freedom of religion. Like, we take all these things for granted and we don't realize that other countries don't have these things. And so, yeah, I just think it's really interesting. And so I'm going to play this short little clip here. It's 23 seconds of Joel speaking. He's going to give you guys a little bit of truth. Stand up for your president. Don't defend the Constitution. If you lose this fight, if you lose this fight, we would have set the wrong precedent. There will never be any fair election in this country. Yeah, so I'm gonna keep moving because it's kind of jamming up, but you guys can watch it on the site if you want to. Basically, what he said is, if we lose this fight, we'll set the wrong precedent. There will never be a fair election in this country again, and that's so true. The lady standing next to me from where I was filming, she was like, "Yep, that's right," and it is true. When you set a precedent of it's okay to steal an election, it's okay to not look in. And I'm not even saying that the election's been stolen. I like to be bipartisan, and I like to be as fair as possible. I'm not saying that the election has been stolen. Okay, I'm saying that there are a lot of claims and allegations of legal interference, and there has now been signed affidavits of testimony for use in legal battles, and we need to look into them, and we need to do our due diligence, because if we allow elections to be manipulated, it sets the wrong precedent for the future. So here's another video, short 12-minute video taken in Colorado Springs of people waving their flags. Jeez. And there's some Bob Dylan playing in the background. If you're wondering what that high-pitched sound is, it's Bob Dylan's sound. The video is not really working very well because I have the streaming software up. But yeah, there's a lot of cars honking as they drove by. Everybody had a lot of support. And I'm not showing you guys this article just to show you what happened in Colorado Springs. I think it's important to highlight the fact that this was a coast-to-coast movement of people standing up and asking for fair elections. So I'm just going to go through all the different places that had these elections. We had Harrisburg, Pennsylvania.
What do you want? Stop the steal! When do you want it? Now! What do you want? Stop the steal! When do you want it? Now! What do you want? Stop the steal! When do you want it? Now! What do you want? Stop the steal! When do you want it? Now!
That's Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. And then we have Tennessee, Nashville, Tennessee.
For victims of sex trafficking?
Stop the steal. Stopping the steal in Nashville, Tennessee. We are here. Hundreds of patriots. Woo! That's right.
So that's Nashville, Tennessee. I really like her glasses. Here's Phoenix, Arizona.
I saw the Trump supporters. I saw people on the overpass. I saw us coming out in the thousands, showing up. There ain't no Joe Biden supporters out here. Sleepy Joe don't come to Arizona. He came out here.
So there's Arizona for you guys. Now we also had Atlanta, Georgia. Oh, doesn't want to play right there. Okay, so that one doesn't want to play in the window, but there was Atlanta, Georgia. Here's Lansing, Michigan.
The Democrats are liars. The Democrats are hateful. The Democrats are deceiving us.
They're evil.
But what they don't understand is that the patriots will not back down. And what they don't understand is we got enough votes for the Democrats are liars. The Democrats are hateful. The Democrats are deceiving us.
They're evil.
But what they don't understand is that the patriots will not back down.
So that's a big crowd out in Lansing, Michigan. And I don't know if the reason they had such a huge crowd out there is because there was a lot of issues with election integrity in Michigan. But I just want to stop for a second and bring one thing to attention. If you look at the crowds, this is not like a single ethnicity. These are very much mixed ethnicity, people of all different backgrounds. And I think that one of the narratives that people are trying to push right now is that this is something that's been going on since Trump took office, is that anybody who's aligned with Trump is some sort of racist white supremacist. But if you look at these rallies, there's people there from all different backgrounds. This is not just a single ethnicity movement. So I just want to stop and kind of bring that to attention. Here's Seattle, Washington, outside the state capitol. So it's a pretty good turnout for the site. That video was posted by Katie Davis Corey. If you guys don't have a Twitter account, I don't know if you'd be able to find her, but this chick here, Katie Davis Corey, she does some really, really good footage out in the Seattle Pacific Northwest region. She regularly covers Antifa riots and Black Lives Matter protests. Here's one from Sacramento, California. This really surprised me because California is typically, I mean, I grew up in California. I lived there until I was about 20. And California is about as far left as it goes. Like, I mean, between California and New York, you don't get an area of the country that's more partisan and Democrat oriented. I mean, California is it. So here is a look outside of Sacramento State Capitol building. This is a another one in Austin, Texas. Oh, that's weird. Austin kind of got copied with California. Okay, so Trenton, New Jersey. Here we go.
You're looking at a Green New Deal austerity plan
And
to mass murder the planet, and I'm not fooling. Because the
About
policy
why
of eliminating fossil fuels is a policy from the central bankers to try to run a total bankers dictatorship in the world. So when Trump says the future belongs to the patriots, not to end this Green New Deal crap across the world, then the U.S. can go back to manufacturing. We can go back to the American system that we had from our founding, from